Greetings, travelers. It's me, your friendly neighborhood producer, letting you know that you're about to listen to our DragonCon episode. It's all about Holler Monsters. So sit back, relax, and we'll see you on the other side.
I'm author Mark Muncy.
And I'm author Erika Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels.
So,
I'm just going to do some pre-show banter here.
oh, you're recording our pre-show banter.
Yeah,
That's
because we don't
unfortunate.
get to record the pre-show banter most of the time. So.
That's because it's ridiculous and stupid. Okay. But we, and you're going to hear more about this. We host a podcast called Eerie Travels. So if you decide you want to subscribe to our podcast, we have free stickers up here.
Stickers.
So just saying, you can throw it out there. We're on literally every podcast platform. We talk about things like the Holler Monsters and ghosts and scary places and the Mandela effect and just all the creepy, weird stuff we all love.
The real story of Cocaine Bear was our first episode.
Yes.
Because the movie, they took 38 seconds. The bear lived, 38 seconds?
42 seconds.
42 seconds. And then they made it into a movie. But the whole story about the guy on the plane at the beginning is fascinating. It's called The Bluegrass Conspiracy, and it's amazing.
It does involve Waylon Jennings.
Yeah, that's after the bear dies.
And it involves Woody Harrelson's dad.
Woody Harrelson's dad is,
assassin.
as an assassin. Did you guys know this? And one of these suspects of the killing of JFK. What? So yeah, we get to go down that rabbit hole on some of our episodes. So it's a lot of fun. So question in the back already.
Is how long a bear can live after snorting cocaine?
Exactly. That's the question.
I would like to clarify he ate it.
Yeah, ate it.
Which, by the way, hits your system way faster than if you snort it. I'm just throwing that out there as a thing.
And then so his stomach exploded,
Yeah.
and that's why he was like the perfect trophy, because they stuffed him, and you can go visit him. His name is Pablo Escobar, right? He's in Lexington, Kentucky. The best thing was he spent 11 years
Yes.
in a Las Vegas mansion that was like a party house owned by Waylon Jennings. I can't imagine. And
Like you do.
There was like a whole Ocean's 11 heist stealing this bear from an educational center,
a park conservatory.
educational center.
Yeah.
So, and it's hysterical. It's one of those things. So,
I
a
think
duffel bag full. So
they
it's
think
like
that
40,
he ate 40 pounds
Yeah.
of cocaine in a very short period of time.
yeah, with a 12-pound stomach. So,
Well,
yeah.
So we live in North Carolina, and there are bears, and bears will Bears Beats in Battlestar Galactica. Bears will eat anything.
Yeah.
For the most part, you'd be amazed how much they'll eat. And not that I recommend this, so we are not recommend doing drugs. Wow, why are you recording?
Already?
Yeah.
Trigger warning already? Yeah, we haven't even
trigger
started yet.
Cocaine can be sweet to the senses, to smell and stuff like that.
And
So,
bears love sweet things.
Yeah. So
And-
okay, we all just learned something.
Yeah, we all learned a lot of things.
And I made the audience be totally quiet. So
that was good. That was good. That was well
How
done.
to do that in the first? Oh wait, we haven't even started.
Yeah. But the fun thing is like when you talk to the park rangers, because they're always talking about the garbage there, and the bears are always getting into the garbage cans, and they say, well, we got to invent a better way to keep the bears out of the garbage cans. And they go, well, there's a fine line between the smartest bear and the dumbest tourist. Yeah. And they don't know how to use it to throw things away, and the bear can figure out pretty quick how to get it open to get into it. So
No, I went shopping for a bear-proof garbage can because I have a family of black bears on the mountain I live on, and they have destroyed my trash one time, 3 times in a row. I went out, picked it back up. They'd already gone through it. There was nothing new and exciting in it, and it was all over my driveway again. And I was like, okay, clean it up. 20 minutes later, light goes off. Okay, go out there. They're just And I'm like, I didn't put anything new in the can. What are you guys doing? So I was like, I need to get a bear-proof trash can. So I went to Lowe's and looked online, and they have all these, like, you can buy these straps and stuff. The problem is the bears can still chuck these garbage cans. They're not like weak little things. And then they had this huge one with this giant lock that was $600. And I was like, they can have the trash for $600. I don't care. I'm not spending $600. So I had to build a garbage cage. And it is a cage. Mark has seen it. That goes around. It's a closet cage that goes around with a lock on it, and it's got this huge metal crate on the top.
Like, are the in-laws visiting?
Yeah. Hence torture chamber. No.
Yeah.
And so I went out though. One time light went off. There's the bear, like trying to figure out how to get on top of it. And I was like, yes, I have won against the black bears. I say that now. But come hibernation time, I may be posting a completely different thing about what happened to my bear cage. But now, bear cage is working.
Yeah, you don't want to be Richard Dreyfuss in that, when it goes into the water. So, but come on in. There's room down in front. We haven't started yet. We're just kind of having fun. It's all good. Thank you. Yeah, they can open car doors. They're pretty dang smart. They're clever girl.
Yeah. Clever girl. They shut off. We live near where you go over to Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And
Gatlinburg. Yeah.
Shut up. But they shut off the pass to go the road because it goes through a national park, and people were getting out of their cars to go take pictures of the bears and the bear cubs, and the bears reacted badly. They've also shut down part of the Appalachian Trail because of bear attacks. Because for whatever reason, I think it's a cleansing of the gene pool, to be honest with you, is human. It's a bear. Like, don't get out of your car to go to the bear. They're like, oh, let me take, there's a great video I saw where this guy is running towards a grizzly bear and the mom and its cubs to get a picture. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. 100 ways to die. That's one of them.
All right. Well, I think they need to say a few words.
Hi guys, welcome to Holler Monsters at the Extract. And some of you know that the charity for this year is Cure Children's Cancer. Most of the cancer research happens with adults, so we're trying to push the money toward the kids. We're going to be selling badge ribbons for a minimum donation of $2 after the panel. We've got 3 different types. I'd also like to remind you, if you like what's going on the panel, if you don't like it, if you want to say anything about it, please rate us on the panel and leave a comment. We love to read the comments.
Only if you like us. What was that if you don't like us crap? Like, what is the point?
It's not for the thin, it's for the room's too small. Things like that.
Yeah, we need more room for extract. We need more room for paranormal peeps, right?
And for the donations, DragonCon is matching up to $125,000. So it is an amazing cause. So even if you just give $1 something, it helps towards this horrific thing that's happening. So please keep that in mind. And it's amazing DragonCon is doing that. I suppose we should start now.
I suppose we should start. So we'll do it like we normally start our podcast. So we will do the official intro. And for those of you who've been listening already, you got a lot of pre-show banter there and a retribute to our Cocaine Bear episodes. So nice. So all right. So I'm author Mark Muncy.
I'm author Erika Lance. And this is Eerie Travels. And don't say anything about the music that normally plays. It's awkward because this is going on the podcast.
This is going on the podcast. Destiny Beard's music will have already played.
See,
and
he did it. No matter what I say,
we got to plug Destiny. She's awesome. So
okay, but welcome, travelers.
Amerimart right now. The Midnight Syndicate booth has it. So
okay.
Anyway, sorry.
We're doing Holler Monsters.
We're doing Holler Monsters today. So who all here is familiar with what a holler is? Oh, quite a bit. But there are a lot of places. How many people live in a holler? How many people grew up in a holler and escaped? Okay, yeah, there's a few of us. No,
so you have to give your super sum up version of what a holler is for the couple people that don't know what it is.
Yeah, so most of you know, but
let's all time this to see if he can give up his super small version of this.
Okay, so when I wrote 3 Florida books, but I'm originally from West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and lived in hollers. And so I finally got to do my new book, Eerie, Appalachia, which is all myths, monsters, and legends of the hollers of the Appalachian Trail. But a holler is a valley between several mountains, and usually one or two families tend to dominate the area, and they live there generations. And it's not really, it's usually bottomland, so it's a little easier to farm, but it's not big, wide open spaces of the Midwest, or even kind of just north of here in Atlanta a little bit, where it's all the open fields and all that. This is hard life. It's the way it is. But these mountains are the same mountain. It's the Appalachians are the oldest mountain range in the world. And they are actually the same range that goes all the way up to the Scottish Highlands that you were just at.
I was just in the Scottish Highlands. I didn't go to the Appalachians there. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Anyway, so those family legends all transferred over here, and they came with us. And so the families still they're worried about the Fae. They're worried about the Kelpies. They're worried about all these things, but they give them Appalachian names. We can't have nice things in the Appalachians. So Florida is worse, but Appalachia is bad enough. So we give them names like boogers and haints and boojums, and boojum is a very specific.
You pull back the boojum thing, because that boojum is pretty awesome. So
yeah, okay. So do you want to start with the boojum?
We can start with the boojum.
Now that's one
I kind of know this. I've told you this like 5 times. I have the Diet Coke version of what the
that's
boojum
fine.
is.
That's fine. That's all we got time for today.
Yeah. So a boojum is technically a Sasquatch, right? Or what people would call Bigfoot or skunk ape. There are literally 100 names for this creature, depending on where you are. In Florida, they call it the skunk ape. I think it's because it's in water and it's stinky. So skunk ape. But a boojum, there's a story about it, because the boojum fell in love with a human female and would bring her gems, because up in the Carolinas and stuff, there are a lot of gem mines. A lot of people don't know that, but one of the major things that used to be up there were rubies. You don't hear about that a lot, but ruby gem mines. So this particular Bigfoot creature fell in love with a human. She fell in love with him. Of course, it was forbidden love, but he would bring her gems that he would find, huge fistful gems that he would find and just give to her. So that is the legend. And of course, terrible endings, all that stuff because of that. But that's the boojum.
Yeah.
And it's different than the little teeny Sasquatch monsters. What are those called?
Up north, they're called puckwudgies, which comes from the across the pond way of calling them. And it's stuck. And that was in an area called the Big Bridgewater Triangle. But my favorite is the name of the ones that are on the Georgia-Florida line. They're called the stump jumpers, because they jump from tree to tree like a monkey would. And so that's why many people said, oh, it's a monkey. And you will find that with a lot of these holler monsters, is that it's always an escaped circus animal. If every circus actually lost as many animals as people claim, there were no animals in any circus ever. Because now Nessie is, it's an escaped circus elephant swimming in the water.
That one, which is not a holler, Nessie's not a holler monster,
but in their place,
she's not a holler monster. But what happened, and I don't know, for those that follow this sort of thing, there was a video caught of a very large thing moving through the water in Loch Ness recently. It's a weird, it's not like you get to see the head or anything, but you can tell there's a very large thing moving through the water. So when I was in Scotland, very coincidentally, it was coincidentally, I didn't time it. They were doing one of the largest Loch Ness hunts they've done in like 50 years, because this video surfaced. They did not find her.
No.
So she still evades things, but Loch Ness is thought to be a dinosaur or something like that left over from that time period. We actually have a whole episode on that and what we think it is.
And on our side of the pond, we have Chessie, which is the Lake Chesapeake monster. We have Bessie. We always give them the E's because Nessie. We have to copy everything.
They're all related. They're all sisters.
And then. But my favorite is the one down in Lake Norman. Does anybody know Lake Norman? That's all right. So we got quite a few people. It's a beautiful lake there. Did you know it had a river monster? So, all right. Guess what his name is? Because we're creative here in the South. Normie. Should be Norman, right? No, Normie. And he's been seen numerous times, very plesiosaur style, long neck, humpback. And now the families that live around the lake offer him offerings. Now you would think, river monster. What would you offer a river monster to protect your family? To make sure cucumbers is a good thought. You're close. Yeah, what do you think?
Betty White fed the cows.
Yeah, Betty White fed the cows, the Lake Placid monster. Yeah, that's true. But no, what they leave out for Normie, tuna fish sandwiches. So
They actually make it into a sandwich.
they make it into a full sandwich. Apparently, he prefers Wonder Bread, but I think somebody
There
else
is
may have
somebody on the lake.
influenced.
Yeah, I was gonna say there is some family on the lake that is like, here's what we're gonna do. Grab that stick and that bucket. You're gonna swim underwater. It's gonna look like the head. We're gonna leave a note that says tuna sandwiches.
We're gonna
Every
have
Sunday, we're gonna have tuna sandwiches.
we're gonna have all the tuna sandwiches in the lake. Yeah, it's great.
I didn't think that one was your favorite. I thought the one in Florida was your favorite.
Well, so there's this beast in Alahatma, which is a wonderful place, South Georgia. And have anybody been there? Okay. And again, the
Two people.
two people. All right, so it's near the Altamaha, right? Altamaha. And there's a beast there, and it's near the town of Darien. And they have a beast there, and it's Alahatmaha. Yeah, Altamaha. It's ha 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 ha. It's like the
Now I
Joker
dare
name this creature.
everyone to say that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
Forever.
And again, we can't have nice things, so we can't keep that original awesome name. We call him Alti. Yeah, again, right? Alti. And now that is again classic plesiosaur style. They have a wonderful big display of him in Darien's Welcome Center, which is pretty cool if you want your picture with a plesiosaur model. But then you go a little further south, and that actually blends into the St. Johns River, and he becomes the St. Johns River Monster. It's pretty good name, right? But then there's a variant of him, since there were so many Loki
Very Loki.
cosplays,
Very Loki. Very.
that is albino and is the color of boiled shrimp. And this one almost sank a steamship in the 1900s. And he goes into Florida. And so Florida, of course, cannot have good things. They do not call him the Beast of St. John's. Can we guess? Pinky.
Because that's terrifying. By the way, stay out of this river because Pinky will get you.
Pinky will get you, which has been, of course, explained as albino seals coming in from the Gulf, or an albino manatee.
They just had 2 albino dolphins in
Yeah, they
that
did have 2.
area.
Yep.
And they were like, and there's Pinky. And you're like, that's a dolphin.
That's a dolphin, and dolphins generally don't try to sink steamships. So
You don't know that. The whales are overacting right now. So who knows what happened in the past.
Maybe back then.
Yeah.
Back then. But so now most Holler Monsters, like I said, are family traditions. They are
Except for mine.
well, oh, okay.
Because mine all came from Fallout 76. Yeah, no, I told Mark, I was joking with him. I'm like, let's do this podcast. He's like, Holler Monsters. I'm like, you mean like Fallout 76? Because Grafton Monster, let's do this. So,
Yeah.
but how many have played Fallout 76?
There's a few.
Okay, there's like 5. So in this game, they literally took the Appalachian area, and that's where the war happened. And so when you go into the game, you go fight things like Mothman and the Grafton Monster and stuff like that. So Mark's first question to me was, what does Mothman look like in the game? Doesn't look like Mothman normally looks, but let's talk about some of those. How about the Grafton Monster? It's one of my favorites. It beat the shit out of me almost every time I fought it.
So Grafton is in West Virginia, and they haven't like where Mothman is pretty much world famous. We have Mothman here with us today. Thank you so much. And we'll be visiting your festival shortly in just a few weeks.
Yep.
If you haven't been to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, we'll get to Mothman real quick. We'll do a quick Mothman thing in a minute, but I'm not going to bunny trail yet.
You just did. You literally, I said, talk about the Grafton monster, and you're like,
okay.
Let me talk about Mothman for a minute.
All right. So Grafton is just a short distance from Point Pleasant, where Mothman lives, and Grafton has a hill that you kind of go around. It's this real steep turn, and this reporter is driving home from work. It's 1950s. It's been a long day. And he sees what he thinks is a recent rock slide. It's like this big white rock in the side of the road. And he's like, oh, I better report this for the newspaper, because it wasn't like television or anything at that time.
You couldn't live stream that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, there was television, but just not in many hollers in West Virginia. The newspaper was still how you got your news. And so so he writes it down, but then he notices it moves. And then it gets up. And he realizes this thing's huge. He said it looked like a wet seal, which of course was long before the mall stores opened, which have now long gone, thank goodness. And it lumbered down the hill, and he said it was headless, like a sunken in head, and had just big, massive hands, and it walked like what he described as a gorilla. And then he goes into town, calls all his friends, and is like, because there is no police in Grafton at this point, because Grafton is about 15 people. And he's like, calls his friends and says, there's a monster, we got to get it. So of course, everybody shows up, guns in tow. They march the ground. All they see is crushed ground and a strange, haunting whistling that sounds like, and they couldn't figure out where it came from. They chased it. They couldn't find anything, nothing. So he's like, I'm not even going to write about this. This was stupid. Why did I do this? And he goes home.
And I should stop drinking on my way home.
Yeah.
But no, just kidding.
But then the next day, he's having dreams about it. And he's thinking about it. He's like, I better warn people. If that thing's out there, it could hurt somebody. So he writes it in the paper. And all hell breaks loose, because everyone in the world wants to capture this monster. And because the Smithsonian offers a bounty on this, they see that article and said, we'll give you $1,000 if you can bring this thing in dead or alive.
Which back then was a tremendous amount of money.
I'd still do it.
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
$1,000? I'll bring anything.
No.
Come on, I haven't been doing this that long.
No. We're gonna have to edit that.
All right, sorry, producer. All right, but anyway, yeah. So the town goes crazy. The next week's newspaper article is, even if there was a monster, there was no way anybody's going to find it, because you can't move out there. There's 1 million people looking for the monster. It couldn't fit in there anyway, because monster hunting is now the new state hobby of West Virginia. And so, yeah, that's the last time he's seen.
Now, was he the only one who ever saw this monster?
He was the only one.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't tend to talk about it much. Now, the town pretended like it never happened. This was a bogus thing. It was a hoax. He recanted it and said, nope, never saw it. Don't know what you're talking about. But then right before he died, he said, I was forced to write that article about recanting it. So I did see it, and it changed my life.
So I did see it, and it changed my game. Because it's big and scary, and it pretty much looks like exactly what he described in the game. So
pretty good.
Grafton Monster, but now they
doesn't
embrace it.
whistle.
But they embrace it now in Grafton.
They saw Point Pleasant has a Mothman festival that brings in 50,000 people to the town of 5,000 people, and said, we have a monster, and we would like money.
And so let's parade out the Grafton Monster.
Yeah. So suddenly there's a painting there, a mural that you can get your picture with. They haven't done anything else yet, but they're working on it.
There's stickers. I've been there.
Now, if you go across the way, this one kind of blends between Holler Monster and something otherworldly, because that's where we go. And this is a bit more famous one, and that is Flatwoods. Anybody know the Flatwoods Monster? Oh, a lot of hands. Yeah. Flatwoods Monster is probably, it doesn't really fit the Holler Monster theme, because we think this is more of an alien encounter. because
No, I'm 100% sure that's an alien encounter.
yeah, and we just did an episode on that. So if you want to know more about that, tune in and subscribe and like and share with all your friends and tune in 2 episodes ago. We're not going to talk about him here today.
Okay,
So-
but we can talk about another monster that's up that way,
Oh, yes.
which is
Should we talk about it?
yes,
Are you sure?
no,
Okay.
do it anyway though,
All
because you
right.
don't listen to anything
I don't
say.
say. We did the bunny trail a little bit ago, and that is Mothman, right? Again, kind of blends the world between Holler Monster and a little bit otherworldly, but that was mostly due to one man, John Keel, who was a big paranormal investigator of his day. And
You're jumping ahead in the story.
I,
Go
well,
back to the beginning.
okay. All right. So a young group of men are out digging a grave, as you do. And they see something fly overhead. And this is in the town of Clendenin, West Virginia. And they see what they say is a giant bird or a flying man.
You didn't go back far enough.
Why?
You need to go all the way back to Florida.
Oh, really?
Yes, go back to Florida.
For what?
Oh wait, no, that's part of the
That's
other story.
Flatwoods.
That's Flatwoods. Sorry,
Sorry.
not enough coffee.
Now you're bunny trailing. Wait a minute. All right. So yeah, so Clendenin, these 5 grave diggers see a flying creature. And this is a pretty famous story, but they don't talk about this incident much. Everybody talks about the second time he's seen. And that just kind of disappears into a newspaper article. 3 days later, young couple are in an area near Point Pleasant called the TNT area, which is an amazing place to visit. It was a munitions factory in World War II, and to hide it from potential German bombers that might somehow get to West Virginia and somehow see that we have factories there, they made up all these little domes, concrete domes, and that's where they stored all the munitions that they would eventually ship to Europe. And so it was they were covered in moss and things like that. Now they're covered in trees. Everything's been allowed to grow. The factory is long gone. But during this period in time, it was a great place to go with your sweetie and go park, because there's these long strips of road between each dome. Yeah, we really hid this thing hard. It looks exactly like a perfect grid. It's very military base designed. I'm sure if the Germans flew over, they'd be like, that's a natural forest. What are those little triangles that look like bunkers? Wait a minute. Should we bomb those? Nah. Anyway, they're out there and they're racing their cars and they're doing all the things. And suddenly the creature is spotted. Now, everybody knows the story. Oh, it flew over their car. It was doing 100 miles an hour and it was doing all this stuff. The initial sighting is it's on the side of the road. Nobody talks about this. It's on the side of the road and its wing is caught in a barbed wire fence. There is nothing more holler than having your monster's wing caught in a barbed wire fence. And he's pulling his wing free with very muscular arms. And they described him as a flying Sasquatch, basically, if you listen to the original stories. And it's pretty incredible.
I just want to say it's terrifying to think that Bigfoot could fly.
Exactly. But he takes off into the air when the lights hit him. His eyes glowing red, muscles, giant wings, and he takes off into the air. Now his wings never flap. Every sighting of the Mothman, you never see the wings flap. It's literally just kind of like this. Again, his head is sunken in, very similar to our friend Grafton. And
They're cousins.
yeah, they might be related up there. And then, but he launches like a rocket. Everybody says, literally into the air. And can you imagine the sound this terrifying beast makes as it flies overhead? They said it sounded like something just squeaking. And really, everybody in the movies, you think Mothman, roar, no.
I don't think Muppet Mothman would be nearly as popular, but I think that would be badass, don't you? Like
I'm
Muppet
just saying,
Mothman.
Beaker is Mothman.
Yeah.
I am all for that casting. I am all for that casting of the next fan movie.
We'll be right back with Eerie Travels.
Eerie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Greetings, mortals and others. I'm Dick Terhune, the voice from hell. I work with haunted attractions all over the US, Canada, and Europe to increase audiences and enhance their experience with highly effective commercials, narrations, animatronic character voices, whatever your dark heart desires. Let me help you do more, scare more, profit more. Find out more at Voice from Hell on Facebook and at voicefromhell.com.
Oh, okay, so this is the second sighting.
This is the second sighting, and now one of the things that's kind of lost in this is as they're flying back to town as fast as they can, and this thing keeps appearing in front of them. So it's not flying to catch up with them. He's just already there, ahead of them, like standing menacingly. And they're like, oh, crap, turn the corner. And at one point, they see something at his feet. So we have to go over a holler. We have to go over the hill to earlier in that night. And this is a story that doesn't get reported for a couple days. There's a farmer who is hearing weird noises outside his house and his TV cuts out.
Does it sound like me?
And that's what it sounds like.
Okay.
And he goes outside and he sends out his dog Bandit to chase whatever's in the woods. And he sees giant red eyes. He thinks it's a bear. He thinks it's some animal that his light shine is hitting. And so he sends the dog out, and the dog chases off into the woods, never to be seen again.
Yeah, you should have trigger warning this.
Yeah. Well, now the trigger warning is here because back at that sighting on the other hill, the next day, or that later that night, as they're driving into town, they see a giant dead dog at its feet. So yes, as everybody loves Mothman, everybody's happy with Mothman. Mothman eats dogs.
He didn't eat the dog. He just killed the dog. Let's
I
clarify.
like the one person who emailed us about that and said that maybe he was protecting the dog and that he grabbed the dog up to take it and offered it to them to take it to the vet, and then they were too stupid to do it.
Okay, I'll
So,
go with that.
I go with that. All right. So those, if you want to keep Mothman, in your mind that way, go ahead. But we think that is Mothman's victim. But anyway, Mothman's seen again and again. They go into town. They get the sheriff. The sheriff comes out. Sheriff believes him, and he takes statements and doesn't think they've been drinking much. It's West Virginia.
Moonshine.
Yeah. But he says they're all upstanding kids and all this, and they all talked about it. And there's still one original witness left from that night, and she will be speaking at the Mothman Festival in 3 weeks, and we'll be there to get her story again. So, but that's what we do, is we try to get the original witnesses. We try to get the stories and all that. So those are the kind of the famous ones. So now we're going to go into the back hollers, right? And we're going to get the lesser known monsters. So how many people are fans of Mountain Monsters? Because the guys are here, man, right? Yeah, they're pretty good. It's a fun show. It is not a scripted show like some that we like to talk about.
Well, we don't
mention
their
names,
but
but they rhyme with schmack.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Mountain Monsters guys, they go investigate monsters, and the minute they hit the town, the monster attacks them, and they barely survive. And then they come up with a trap to stop the monster, and it's very Scooby-Doo. It's definitely Fred has invented this gadget that will do the thing, and then it gets away and there's no evidence caught whatsoever. But we'll see you next week. It's a great show. The guys are amazing. They are all cryptid hunters. They do this their whole life. They've heard these holler stories their whole life, but Hollywood got them. So that's the way you got to remember that. But some of their monsters were real monsters. Some were made up for the show, but it's still great fun. If you get a chance, watch those. There's like 11 seasons and totally worth it. But when I started doing Eerie Appalachia, I would go into these hollers and get more family stories and start interviewing meemaws and peepaws. Let's keep these folks' tales alive because they're dying off. And so I got some good stuff that we put in the book, and I'm going to give you a couple of them for free today. All right. So one of my favorites is also, this one kind of borders the Huntington, Kentucky line here because it's two places. Now, this family, they emailed us from the podcast, but that was actually before the podcast, was when I was doing the books. They emailed me a letter and said, hey, we've got something weird in letters from one of our cousins to my grandma. And we found it when we were going through her belongings. And we think you should look at this. So I go to their house and they show me the letter. And it's a classic letter of the late 1800s going, hi, Ma, can't wait to be back for the wedding. All this other stuff. What should I bring? Are you guys going to be feeding me? And he's working in a mine in Olympia, Kentucky. And they live in Huntington, West Virginia. And he's sending the letter back. And he's like, and it's just this normal letter. But then at the about 3/4 mark, he says, weird thing happened. They blew open a wall in the cave because we had to start a new vein. And there were some creatures in there that were eating a bear. They had long, stringy hair, very long claws, and big, bulging eyes, and sat squat like toads. Very stringy skin, and I think they were boojums.
They weren't boojums. Did they have gems? No.
And then he's like, or hobgoblins. I like that. And he's like, but they were very, very scary. They didn't seem bothered by the explosion or us at all and continued to eat the bear. The men were sore afraid that that we all left for the day. Should I go back to work tomorrow? Can't wait to see you at the wedding. Tap.
Okay. I want to pick this apart because let's start with, I'm going to send a letter that's probably going to take, even though they're not far apart, weeks to get there, weeks to get a reply. Should I go to work?
Yeah. So the next thing we have now, we don't have whatever they sent to him, but grandma being grandma, she had saved the next letter because she saved all his letters. And so the next letter is, thank you for the pie. Had a great time, and just goes on. And then he says, now about that thing, you were right. We told the boss we wouldn't go back in until they killed the creatures. So they hired men to come and kill the creatures. Bunch of men came in with guns and took care of business. They carried out 2 bears and 3 of the things. And we were all happy, and we've gone back to work. See you at the reunion. Tap. It was like, okay, this is very weird. So now I'm like, okay, I've got these 2 letters. How do you research this, right? And that's when you go to the newspapers and you see, newspaper archives. And I drove to the Huntington Herald and said, do we have anything? No, but Olympia, Kentucky has its own newspaper. And I didn't find anything about monsters, but guess what I found? I found a want ad for men with guns to kill some bears in a mine that same week. Okay, so now that mine in Kentucky, what did they do? So did they kill him? We think they did. What was it? Who knows? It sounded Gollum when you read it. And I'm like, man, Tolkien could have wrote this. This is great. Maybe he did and inspired him. But the scariest part about that is that mine 2 years later is involved in one of the greatest tragedies ever. They went to blow open a new vein and they put the dynamite in and it didn't go off. And so somebody has to go check. They all go check. What? And then it explodes and at least a dozen men are killed. The problem is they didn't mention at that point in newspapers if, undocumented workers were part of it or people who were, not, they only mentioned the white people. Let's just leave it at that. So we think actually more people died than were reported. And the mine was closed for a little while, but that mine is open today and still there.
That is not a travel destination. Let's
Don't
clarify
go
that.
there. Go to when you go to Huntington, West Virginia, you can go to Cicada Books, which is one of our favorite bookstores there. And they have some of that documentation. So pretty crazy, but that's how these holler stories come, and they disappear. So,
and we should talk about the cave system for a little bit because the cave system is one of the largest cave systems
the
in
largest
in the world.
in the world, the Mammoth Cave system. It's the only thing that might be bigger is that one in Romania.
Yeah,
That they think is bigger, but the Mammoth Cave system, they still don't know how big it is. They have people down there every weekend mapping new caves, and they still haven't ever stopped.
yeah.
So
there could be many, many things that live in the caves.
don't watch The Descent if you live in North Carolina. Yeah.
Or be like me and watch it and then don't go into the caves.
Yes.
Like there's that you tend to forget that survival option of not going into things.
But, where's
It's
the
like-
fun in that though? So
It's called living. That's fun. Yay.
all right. So that's so those we have dubbed the Huntington Hobgoblins or the Olympia Cavemen or the Olympia Boogies, which is another fun name for that. So
What about one of the scarier things that we get many reports of that are in the woods?
like which one? So
The one that says your name.
Oh, yes. Okay, so there are rules of the hills of Appalachia, right? You do not answer your name when called unless someone is actually looking for you. Because things tend to copy your name. They tend to listen. Now, this actually goes back naturally. I mean, in Africa, they've caught hyenas doing this, where they'll circle a village and listen for the names, and they'll mimic the sound to try to lure people out of the village so that they can get them. Everybody thinks hyena's the goofy thing from Lion King. They're the scary things from Lion King. But in Appalachia, that's one of the things. Also, don't go in the woods alone. That's just a good safety tip in general. Thank you. Also, other fun things, salt is a fun thing to have because who knows, the Fae might get you. And iron, always have an iron thing. Railroad spikes, very useful tool, because hey, iron, right? But also, iron spike, very handy weapon. Buffy should have used iron spikes, would have been better.
Yeah.
Anyway,
There's iron just like.
but anyway, there is one. We've actually got a recent letter.
Yeah.
Literally last week, we got a letter. Somebody had an issue. Now, this was not in Appalachia. This was in, where was it? Arizona. Arizona. We got a lady who emailed us and said, "What's going on at my trailer park?" I love that. So I'm like, I'm in. I'm just hoping
You can go by yourself.
I'm hoping for just like some cops, potential here, So,
Yeah, because people often email Eerie Travels with, let me tell you about the police at my trailer park.
yeah. But anyway, they said there was something seen on the roof of one of the trailers.
No, it started with a noise.
Yeah, a noise. They heard a noise.
And something calling the names of the residents. So it started that they were out at night. They heard noises on the roofs and people calling the names. So they went out to look.
Yeah, but as you do. And
No.
yeah. And
As
on
I don't.
top is a large white creature with longer arms than legs. And they thought at first it was a bear.
Yeah.
I thought it might be like an albino bear because it's, sure, that's common. And then it stood up and was at a full height as big as the trailer.
Yeah,
And
it's about 8 feet tall.
yeah, and it leapt from one trailer to the next in like an instant. And he's like, and
They
then
chased it.
they chase it because they're like, what the hell? And they're trying to get it on film as it keeps leaping ahead of them, and then boof, it's gone, disappears, like blinks out of existence. And so they go, all right, Mark and Erica, what do you think that is?
No, there was, but wait, there's more. So the next morning, because of course they report this, right, to the person who runs the trailer park. And the person who runs the trailer park is like, yeah, whatever there, dude. But then 5 residents of the trailer park report hearing noises on their roofs and their names being said in the middle of the night at the time this happened. So then they emailed us going, what do you think this is?
Yeah. And I go, well, if it was in the Appalachians, we know of a thing called the hide behind. And that's just something, it's just right behind you at all times. And you never know where it's going to get you.
I hope everybody got sufficiently creeped out. This is the hearing your name called thing,
Yeah.
and why you never turn around.
And for those who are Disney parents, if you ever watched Gravity Falls, they did a fun little bit with the hide behind. And it was provided he's 2-dimensional, so he can turn sideways and you just can't see him. That's fantastic.
But that's not normally, because normally the reports of a hide behind, the ones that people survive, because people disappear.
Yeah.
And we had another report from another listener. They were out in the woods, they were walking along, and they were somehow got a distance of a mile from their friend, they thought. And they heard their name being called.
But the
and
friend had gone home, was heading
Yes.
home.
Their friend was heading home. They thought they were in distance. They heard what they thought was their friend's voice calling their name. And at first they were about to turn around. And then that instinct, which now I hope all of you in this room have, that goes, nope. They just kept walking. This thing followed them for 2 miles. When they finally got a hold of their friend, because of course cell service doesn't work here, by the way, modern technology, their friend had already left when the
Had
first
already
name
driven off.
calling started.
So
So there are definitely things out there.
that know your name.
Yes.
And, so yeah, the hide behind, if it was in Alabama area, because it was white and they have a wonderful name for those. They call them the white things. Again, we can't have nice things. There's a native lore of something along those lines on the East Coast. We call them wampus cats. They tend to look white and they tend to be shape-shifting creatures because they'll start as a woman, they'll turn into a deer, they'll turn into a gator, but always white. And there's a native legend about woman went somewhere she shouldn't have and saw a ritual she shouldn't have. So the medicine man cursed her to be this shape-shifting creature. It's always, uppity women for these native lore stories. And yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
We'll be alone later. Don't worry, I'll resolve it.
But these are all cautionary tales. But then you start realizing, crap, they're describing things. This is not just some folk tale. This is something that happened. And sometimes these Holler Monster legends are things before, that are explaining an event, something that happened and trying to make sense of it. And yeah, I'm gonna quickly give my Holler Monster.
Yes, you can give your Holler Monster.
I'll give my Holler Monster.
Another name for them, which is they're called skinwalkers.
That's
that
out
name,
west.
but that's the out west version name of them. I know there's a popular show, Skinwalker Ranch, which is terribly builds up to a lot of nothing. But anyway,
that's what they all do. It's Hollywood.
Yeah.
But
let's
just remember Hollywood versus reality, 2 different things. That's all you need to know.
So let's talk about your Holler Monster.
Okay, so I grew up in the town of Louisa, Kentucky. Which is, hey, somebody knows it. Wow, there's 3 of us.
Okay, there's a
So,
people that live there are all in this room.
Yeah, it's right along the Big Sandy River, because we can't have nice things. And it's right along the border between West Virginia and
nice
Kentucky.
things, but it's just describing the river is sandy. This is big.
And it's big.
It's a big
That's
sandy river.
Yeah.
Do you have what would you name the Big Sandy River?
Okay, you got me there.
Okay.
All right, so but you know, that's I always love. I was taking all those fantasy literature classes here on the fantasy track, and they're coming up with all these amazing names, and then I'm like, but sadly, I know the reality of this stuff. It's like Cincinnati sounds like a great name for a city. It's Native American for three rivers. There's three rivers meet there. I'm like, okay, so the town is Three Rivers. I'm like, oh, that's great. Yeah, why don't people just name things like
As
we live
you
on a
Muncy
Muncy
tangent.
tangent. We live on a planet called Earth. We live on a planet called Dirt. That's how smart we are. We live on the dirt. Oh, let's call the planet Dirt. Yeah. Let's make it.
Excuse me, I think that's logical, and go back to your little place in Kentucky and get
Louisa.
your Holler Monster.
Louisa is full of dirt and trees. And there is this area along it. There's a bunch of hills that make a ridge. And that area is called Goble Ridge. And on Goble Ridge, there is a beast that lurks in the trees. And this beast leaps from tree to tree. And it has the head of a man, but it's misshapen and glows in the dark. It has the body of a cow or possibly a panther.
Wait,
And-
wait.
Yeah.
Hold on. I need to go back because
Wait,
I try to ignore you.
there's more.
But you said it either has the body of a cow or a panther. Those were
And
the
it
two
climbs in
options.
trees. And it has a wooden leg. And that wooden leg will knock you off your horse if you are a bad person.
From the cow.
As my uncle and my father told the story, the leg was known as the whoop-ass stick. And if you were a bad person, it would knock you off your horse. Now, I thought this was the dumbest thing ever. And
Because
it sounds
is
like
the dumbest thing
it is
ever.
the dumbest thing ever. Sounds like something out of South Park when you hear the name. Are you ready for this? This terrifying beast. Again, we can't have nice things. What do we call this thing with a wooden leg, head of a man? What would you call it? Whoop-ass. I like whoop-ass. That would have been good, right?
Mark, that's what I'd call it.
Wooden leg beast? That's close. The bench leg. The bench leg of Goble Ridge. And I heard that story my whole life, right? And I love monsters. I love ghosts. I was like, I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, and I was a nerd in the mountains, and that was, I was almost burned at the stake. Come on. I played Dungeons and Dragons. This is dangerous. But anyway, so the bench leg, I heard it my whole life, didn't think anything of it until I realized every family member has a story of when they saw this thing and how it ran behind a tree and then it disappeared, and how they thought they had an extra cow in the herd and they all went out and it just disappeared. And then one night I'm out there, and I was a nerd, so I'm stargazing and looking for UFOs because it's what I do. And it's beautiful dark sky territory. There's no cities for miles, so you can see every star. It's incredible. And we're out there, and it's just me alone, and I hear hoofbeats. And I realize one of the horses on the land goes running past. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's nice. Something stirred it up. And then the second one goes running by, and I'm like, well, that's both of them. I'm like, wow, something's got them. And then I hear something else in the woods. And I'm like, are there any bears nearby? Maybe. Because I'd heard stories. And I'm like, I've got my little Red Ryder BB gun. That ain't going to do me much good. Unless you're a marksman in Fallout 76.
Where they work like a charm.
Yeah.
Not against the Grafton monster,
you
bringing
can-
that back again.
Yeah, you can shoot your eye out, kid. But I'm like, what am I gonna do? And then I saw something kind of glowy, and I thought, oh, it's somebody hunting. And it runs past me, and I'm like, is that a human glowing head on a black creature? I did not think to look to see if it had a wooden leg, but it ran past, and it was very scary, and it still haunts my dreams. Like, what was this thing? Now, I'm not saying it was the bench leg. I'm not saying, I just saw something I didn't understand. And that's what I think a lot of this is people see things they don't understand, things that don't make sense. Now, I kind of brought him to prominence right after Eerie, Florida hit the bestseller list. I posted a blog about it and said this. And I got an email from a guy in Lexington, Kentucky. And he's like, tell me your story of this monster. What was the story your family had said? And I said, well, they said that the reason this creature exists is there was a peddler on the hill, and he would go from town to town and fix your pots and pans. He's more of a tinker, and stuff like that. And these bandits figured out, oh, he has money. Let's take him out. So they killed him, and then they killed his cow to cover up the crime and buried him with the cow. And then that pulled his cart. And then he had apparently fought back with a big stick. So they threw that in there with him and all this. But then the bandits were caught and they were all hung. And but one got away. And so there's always one that gets away in these stories, right? It's especially ghost stories. And so the spirit lingers. And so this is like a spirit of vengeance. I'm like, it's freaking Ghost Rider, but not as cool. He needs a motorcycle. Can you imagine the wooden-legged guy on a motorcycle?
So
Come on.
wait, I mean, so he's a zombie cow man peddler chasing after a bandit.
Yep. And that's why his whoop-ass stick
If
ticks
I
you
wrote
off.
this as a story, everybody would be like,
What did you eat before you
Yeah.
took that, or what were you
But I
prescribed?
see cosplay of this creature next
I
year
would
when I
love that. I love that. But anyway, so I was like, so I wrote that back to the guy, and the guy's like, hey, I've heard that story too in Lexington. And I'm like, why? He's like, because my grandfather was hung. He was a bandit, and he killed a man and buried a cow on top of the body. And he swore a ghost chased him, a ghost cow chased him. And that's why he turned himself in.
dun dun
Dun, dun,
dun.
1789. So before, we were barely a state and all that in Kentucky. So that's my Holler Monster. Again, something I don't understand. Some doesn't make sense, but there's connections. There's never anything to do. So thank you all so much for listening to some of the Holler Monsters we've got.
We've got some time
We're-
to
that's
open
why-
it up for questions.
So right there.
Going back to the caves, this isn't as much a Holler Monster, but I'm in the caving community here, and in the Ruby Falls cave system, I've got a replica of it back at my apartment. But a long time ago, when they allowed people to explore above the falls, there were found tracks of the extinct North American jaguar.
Yeah.
From about 2,000 years ago, and it's just crazy. Like they had another entrance that they used. Those things change. New entrances open, old ones close, and you get these little time capsules of history and monsters from our past.
Yeah, and we keep finding new and new cave drawings and stuff. We recently did a thing on flying humanoids because we're on the road to Mothman. So so we've been doing a lot of just fun Mothman themed episodes. And the cave system in France, what's the Birdman of whatever, but they just went in a dog. I love it. In World War II, just after World War II, a dog named Radar, perfect name for a dog, goes in and finds a new cave system. And that's where they find these cave paintings. And one of the cave paintings is of a bird man that is doing something adult with a rhino. It's
There's
very
a
weird.
phallic symbol.
Yeah, just Google him, Birdman of La Fresco, I think. And it's not something. Whenever you see that painting on a website, they blur out certain spots because he's doing something very unique with a rhino. All right, yes. Yes. It's a takeoff of the term boogeyman. So it becomes the cautionary tale. Don't go in the woods at night. And these cautionary tales, they sound silly, but they usually are for a reason. Don't go out in the woods at night. You're gonna get scared. Something bad's gonna happen. You're gonna trip. You're gonna fall. You're gonna get hurt. Or the boogeyman will get you, but the booger will get you, or the bogey is a common one too. And one of my absolute favorites is there's one in the town of Barden, Florida, and this is like probably one of the funnest. It's not a holler, but he's basically a holler monster. He's like the laziest Bigfoot ever, and so he's my spirit animal. It's Florida, so it's hot. So he's panting all the time, and his tongue's always out. He carries a lantern because he can't very well. And instead of, with Bigfoot in the woods fishing, you always see him like doing the bear thing, catching the salmon. He's got a fishing rod. So, and again, is he called the Barden Monster? No. Is he the Beast of Barden? That would be the perfect name. No, he's the Barden Booger. The plus side was in the 1960s, he had the Barden Booger Boogie, which was a big hit in Jacksonville. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Going back to the Huntington and Lynch difference.
Yeah.
The comparison kind of sound like the Moon-Eyed People from around here.
Very similar Moon-Eyed People story, and that was what I kind of delve into a little bit in Eerie, Appalachia, available in fine bookstores and Cracker Barrels everywhere. Or you can come up here and get them at the end of the panel. Yeah, I talk about the moon, how it's kind of tied to the Moon-Eyed People, which is a Cherokee lore that they fought a tribe of people who lived in the caves that were big, blue-eyed, and they could only come out at night because they were so used to living in the caves. And the Cherokee said, you know what? F those guys, we're going to take them out. And they went to war with them and chased them into the caves, never to be seen again. But maybe they are, and that's so. Like I said, we don't know what's down there. We're still finding new life down there all the time. So, yes.
Okay, so going back to the stringy skin guys.
Yes.
Eating cold armed bears.
Eating a bear, right?
So,
not cocaine bear though.
I thought that'd be hard to eat.
Yeah.
What was that mine called? This period.
Okay, I'm not supposed to say anything about what mine it is, but it's a flower that has thorns. Yeah. Hey, no, I didn't say it. I didn't say it. And then it's a small word. No, I'm not gonna say
Great. 2 words sounds like no.
Sounds like schmill. And it was another word for a small mountain. So rose something mountain. So I could be anything. It could be anything. It's what I have in Eerie, Florida, we talk about these gnomes that were spotted near Bach Tower, and they're in an orange grove and they're stealing people's oranges, and they put out traps and they catch this little guy who's like 12 inches tall. They think it's a circus performer that's escaped. Again, circus performers. It's like the Popelic monster. It's a goat man that escaped from the circus. How many goat men were in circuses, and how did they all escape? But yeah, that's another one. It's just like, oh my gosh, yeah. But the gnomes of Bach Tower, they were supposedly, that sort of thing. So it's
Okay, shiny
but they live on a property that's owned by a company that I'm not supposed to name, but it rhymes with Schmapacana. So that's we have a few that we're not allowed to talk about. So
Other question? Yes.
there you go. Yeah, the mulberry black thing. Yeah, we thought that we kind of followed that with our bench leg because it was very similar, but he's got a switch, right? Which is a whoop ass stick. And it's again, very much a cowl with a beating thing. So I think that's the legends. Legends have a tendency to migrate, and we think maybe that's where these things go because the families do leave the hollers. But I will say this about hollers: if you ever live in a holler, you will never be more protected. You'll never have more family. You will never have more kin once you're accepted. It does take 700-800 years. Otherwise you're that guy from Florida. But you were never, because the mouth of the holler protects everybody, and they warn when the government men are coming. And then the guys a little further in the holler have the bigger dogs, so in case they make it past the mouth. And then, but the back of the holler is where the keepers of the knowledge, and they give the peanut butter to the old man of the woods, the wild man in the hills, or the little people, or whatever.
I see you managed to give your longer version of what a holler is.
Snuck it in. So
Why we can't have nice things. Other questions? Yes.
So what do you think of the church does?
wow. Okay, see, I don't like to do native lore without a native expert.
There we go.
We have one over there. So, because I usually reach out to like Al Going Back, who is a Bram Stoker winning author. If you have never read his stuff, pick it up. We have a Cherokee friend named Iron Bear who's amazing. So what are your thoughts on the Cherokee Devil? Not
So
something
we're not
I talk about,
talking-
and that happens a lot with these monsters. Yeah.
It's also something they all.
Yeah, it's not something. Yeah, it's one of those. A lot of the native lore, but I don't even like to call it native lore. It's native. It's their world. It's the belief, and that's like calling Christian lore or Buddhist lore. It's not. It's the way things are. We like to use the term preternatural, which some Shirley Jackson came up with for Haunting of Hill House. It's not supernatural. It's not paranormal. Preternatural stuff we don't understand yet. Someday we might. The preternatural of one generation becomes the natural of the next. We didn't understand how dark matter works, and now in the 60s we had to make up things to make the math work. Now we're like, oh, that stuff's real. Quantum entanglement is a thing, and that's it's when we first started this, the Bigfoot people wouldn't talk to the ghost people. The ghost people wouldn't talk to the UFO people. UFO people wouldn't talk to anybody. So, but now we're starting to realize there's these little, crossovers and things like, hey, there's a green flash a lot of Bigfoot people see right before something happens. David Pilates, Missing 411, kind of figured this out. And so suddenly, it starts meshing. The ghost hunters start figuring stuff out. The monster hunters start figuring stuff out. And that's just kind of how it goes.
So the very long answer you just got, my fine friend in the back, is I would suggest finding somebody who is more intimate with that particular lore, and we're not going to answer
And willing to
because-
discover and willing to discuss
Discuss
it
it.
because it's one of those internal things. And if we start talking about it, kind of like Skinwalker, suddenly there's a TV show and it's kind of ripping up native lore and offending a lot of people, and we don't like to do that. So
okay.
I want to keep the Meemaws and Peepaws happy too. So
Yes.
So we heard about your first monster, but what was yours?
oh,
I have had not a lot of actual, well, I can tell a story. So I can tell one story. It's recent. So there is a place up near Downingtown, Pennsylvania, which is near Philadelphia, called the Devil's Gate. And it is a gate towards a property where a man did a family annihilation and said that he heard voices that made him do it, right? Demons. The US is very famous for demons. But what is interesting is there is a lot of lore about this one area where there's like a little bit of a creek, whatever, that's running past
that's what
it.
part of the Mason-Dixon line you're on.
And it's in a very wooded area and all this stuff, because you can go up to the gate, but you can't go in the property, right? But I got there and it was very, very weird, because one of the things that is said about this property is there is a gate to somewhere else on this one spot, right? And you'll find there's a lot of places that are kind of hot spots and have weird stuff happening. But I was like, okay, doing Eerie travels, this travel spot. I got out of the car and you can hear the water running and wind blowing through the trees and like nature sounds. And I walked the 20 feet to where this was, and it went dead silent, like dead silent. And I was like, this creepy, I'm still getting goosebumps. I get goosebumps. Nope, I don't like these
This is
things.
why I love taking her place.
And so I'm standing there and every fiber in my being is get the hell out of here. But I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to take a little thing. I pull out my cell phone, and from behind me, I hear a growl, like a loud, guttural growl. And I turned, there's nothing there, but it was loud. So I did my quick recording, got back in my car, and got back in the car. My friend had driven me, and she is like, why did you get out of the car? And she had goosebumps all over her body. And she said the moment I stepped in that, it went silent around her. everything went silent. So I don't know what that was, whether it's just negative energy in that space. I will not go there again. But if you want to check it out, you can Google the Devil's Gate up in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and you can go outside of where that is. So I haven't had necessarily creature
But
experiences.
she's had a lot of others.
I've had a lot of ghost experiences.
And
and
you know,
stuff.
and that's what we do is we talk myths, monsters, legends, ghosts, dark history, and just places to go visit, places to have fun with, and that's what we do. So thank you all so much for coming. I think we're about out of time.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcaster thing of choice. Like, share, subscribe to all your friends. And if you do subscribe, we've got some stickers up here that we are happy to give away. And also rate us on the app so that
Please,
they have us back next year. Please. We'd love to. And we'll see you on the other side.